Select. Oh, there we go.
I just want to make sure. Okay, so we are recording. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. All right. And okay. So I'd like to. No, let's start again. All right. Hi everyone, it's Caitlin from the Healing Light podcast. Tonight's guests are Mel of Melodies Reiki and Healing, and my friend Wolf of Dark Mirror Paranormal. So my friends Mel and Wolf, and tonight we're going to go over the afterlife and talk about what that means and different beliefs, etc. I want to remind people that you can find the Healing Light podcast every first and third Tuesday of the month, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on all social media. That is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I am The Healing Light NH. If you have any show feedback for me, want a topic that you'd like to hear about, or have a guest I should interview, please don't hesitate to send me a direct message on either platform, any platform, or you can email me at the Healing Light 1, that is the Healing Light number 1, at gmail.com. Thank you. So, Mel, Wolf, I chose the afterlife, and to be honest with you, I've been doing some, God, it sounds like a cliche, but I've been doing some soul searching. And I think it's because I'm at that age, I'm 55, I'm getting closer to 60 than 50, and not that I have any plans like that anytime soon, but it just comes across your mind. You have to, my wife, Shelly, and I have to start talking about wills and all that fun stuff. Not fun. So I've also evolved into what I believe happens in the afterlife. And there's no, there's other belief systems. I Googled it real quick. And please, people, listeners out there, don't at me or yell at me for getting this wrong. I totally do not, I'm not the expert on this. This is just information that I found. So you can always send me a message to correct me or educate me about what your beliefs are. So I chose kind of the obvious, well, not obvious, well, Christians, I think, but Catholics. So they believe that after death, a person's soul is judged immediately and sent to heaven, purgatory, or hell based on how well they follow God's teaching. So heaven is like, everyone knows heaven, it's the good place. Hell is the bad place. Purgatory is a place for people who haven't purge their sins or receive redemption from their sins. So it's a place of purification. So I found that interesting. Next, I'm just going to go, just 3 I found. Buddhism, which I love. So they believe that the consciousness or the spirit continues after death and may be reborn into another cycle of life. This cycle is called samsara. So they believe, I believe that sounds like they believe in reincarnation. And then for the Muslims, it says here, they call it the afterlife, or I'm going to butcher this, sorry. I please don't want to offend anyone. Akhira in Islam. Muslims believe that Allah decides when a person dies, and on that day of judgment, or Yom al-Din, all people will be raised from the dead and judged by Allah based on their deeds. And we'll get to my beliefs in a moment, because I really thought about it and meditated on it and wrote about it, and I believe I've got my belief to where it feels right in my heart and my soul. So Melody, it's not an easy topic to talk about, but you and I both do Reiki, and you've done readings for people, and so we have that Wiccan pagan spiritual being about us. I'm probably wording this wrong. So what do you think about it?
I think there's definitely an afterlife, as being also a team member of Dark Mirror Paranormal and having the great pleasure of being able to work with Wolf in conjunction and see him really in his element. He's really brought about some interesting theories, some interesting energies. We encountered one in specific on a bridge that was quite scary. So I definitely think there's all kinds of realms, and it really does kind of depend on your spiritual belief. I definitely believe in the possibility of reincarnation. I
Hmm.
believe in the possibility of, like, we can choose to move on, but we can also choose to stay here if we have unfinished business, if there's a message that we want to get out. But I don't think that necessarily means we're sitting in purgatory. I think that's just like it's our choice to do that. Sometimes I think we do have like things that happen, or when somebody dies really suddenly, sometimes they don't realize that they've passed on, you know? Sometimes they're
Hmm.
like, what is happening right now? So,
Hmm.
I really I really kind of feel like it depends on your spiritual beliefs. Like, I don't want to say no matter what you think it's right, but for lack of better term, I would say that's kind of like the thought process almost. Like, I don't personally believe in the all magical heaven. I do believe that there is a higher power, a higher spirit, and that we have to answer to them. Do I believe in hell itself? No, not really. I believe that, like, if you did something awful, you are gonna have to like pay for that when you meet your maker, when it comes time for your soul contract to move
Hmm.
on.
Okay.
um, but I don't necessarily buy into the belief of heaven and hell. But I do think there's definitely reincarnation. There's definitely, we can choose to come back if we want, or, sometimes you do get stuck if you need to do something to be able to continue on. I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And Wolf, I think that I forget to say that you are also of Dark Mirror Paranormal. If I have forgotten, please forgive me, and if I have to. But I wanted to, Melody has some great insight, and a lot of what her beliefs are very similar to mine. And I come at it from a different space. But we all, this is what I believe in. It's very similar to Melody's, and I'll get to mine in a moment. But Wolf, I wanted to ask, you know, reincarnation, heaven, hell, judgment, regrets, love, happiness, all of that. Our pets. What do you think?
Um, so growing up, right, typical, uh, same typical New England black family upbringing. So Baptist church, um, Catholic church, Christian church, Lutheran church,
Mm,
Episcopalian. I got invited to go to Jehovah's Witness church, which I didn't do. So I've like delved into all of those just to see like the similarities and differences, and then um, doing my own uh, emotional growth, I guess. Looked into Buddha, um, Islam, uh, Jewish beliefs, all these different kind of things, just to kind of like try to get an idea of like where I sit. And even like historically, like Egyptian beliefs and Mayan and all that other stuff, like all the big names, right? They all have very, very, very similar outlines, right? So it's like, be good to people. If you're not, you're damned, and if you are, you're fine, right? That's like the overarching thing.
Right.
Um, as for hell, every, almost every, I can't say every, almost every religion has a Satan, and depending on your perspective of that changes a lot, especially when you're looking at hieroglyphics and stuff. So Satan is the bringer of knowledge, right? And that's a weird thing to think, like, oh, the devil brings knowledge. Well, that's what happened in the Garden of Eden, right? He tricked them into eating the apple to gain knowledge. And then in Egyptian, Satan was an alien, could have been an angel, right? But their perspective at the time was an alien, otherworldly being that came down and gave them knowledge. Right? And it's hard for me to say, like, yeah, hell is terrible. Like, this is this deity that's out there, or not really a deity, a false deity, right? He's out there trying to prey upon the souls of the innocent to just trick them into eternal damnation. I can't get behind that. I do believe that there is a higher power. I believe in God, but not the traditional sense of God. There's a lot of things that get muddied when I try to reconcile like spiritual and scientific with that. So I do think that there is a higher thing, but I also believe that. So you were talking about purgatory. I believe that when we die, we don't die, right? Energy can never be destroyed. Right? It can only change forms. And that's proven in everything. You just can't just get rid of energy. And I believe that unless you somehow get all the experience with your first time existing, I feel like there's like check marks, almost like a report book. Like you need to do this, and this before you can really move on. And I think that we come back to get those lessons that we didn't get, and that's when you get into like past lives and like the purpose of a lot of psychics and people in the esoteric fields are a lot of the times they believe that they've lived multiple lives and they're here to help people enlighten to move on to the next step, right? So I fall somewhere in that. I've never been able to really pinpoint it because one of my beliefs goes against the rest of them, right? One of them is like, and that's because I believe everything, and until you show me that that is totally not true. One of the theories for humanity is that aliens, another alien species, came here, spliced us with the monkeys and their DNA, and that's how we got humans. And they're checking in on us all the time, and they are our God. Right? Those are our creators. Doesn't mean that they're the creators, but they would be our creators. And that is a thing that sits in my mind, only because it sort of makes sense in a weird way. Because there's no other species on this planet like us, like totally like us. But I don't think that it's like hell and brimstone, and because we do investigations dealing with spirits that are stuck, and I believe there's merit in that. I don't think that everybody's falsely experiencing spirits, right? So I think that there are times when something happens where you can't continue, or that you choose to stay. And especially when people experience like near-death experiences, that's when a lot of these things are certainly talked about. And one thought is that when we die of our earthly bodies, we move on to the next dimension. And I don't know if you ever had any near-death experiences that you can remember or not, but I had one. I had two that were similar. And during those things, I felt my soul leave my body and start to stretch. And it was trying to, I ended up in what I believe was like the ninth dimension, but then my brain could not handle that concept anymore.
Okay.
And then I got like shoved back because I wasn't supposed to be there.
Interesting. For me, you make really great points. Similar to you, I think we all kind of have some similarities between the three of us. So I was raised with, I don't want to say like lack of religion. No religious upbringing really. My mother was a member of the Unitarian Church, which is, I can't even say that. Yeah, non-denominational, whatever you call it. I can't pronounce it. But anyway, it's something in my mind. Anyway, so, but I remember, what I did was go down into the play area downstairs and, go into the playroom. So there was no religious pressure or anything. However, as I grew up, I made friends. One of my very good friends was a born-again Christian. So I went to her church, which was, evangelicals. I didn't know it was evangelicals, but I just remember having a lot of fun because we sang. They taught songs and we had fun. We went on like trips and had all sorts of stuff like that. And then in high school, I was dating a boy and he was Catholic. So I, went to a couple Catholic masses with him. And then somehow, I don't know where I was, but another friend had me sit in on a Baptist service, and wow, that was wild. And of course, what do I remember? They were having such a great time, and they called me up, and they're like, "Who's new here?" I'm like, "Me," and they were like, "Well, welcome," and all this stuff. So, I've had a lot of it, and then when I became involved with paganism, I said, okay, this makes a lot more sense. Then that has to evolve because I also come from a place, I'm not trying to get dark on people, but I have a history of childhood trauma. And so the question in my mind, has been, well, where did these murders, rapists, kids who get hit by cars, where do the murderers and rapists and the bad people go? Because, in all-knowing God, I do believe that, like Melody said, there is I believe there's a being out there, the universe. It's provided for me. Things have happened. It's provided me with my gifts, my healing and all that. What I think about religion, I don't like organized religion. I think it can be used in the wrong for, people to keep people in line and control people. I'm not saying that's with everybody, but that's how I've seen a lot of it. And, just a history where a lot of churches have sheltered, the not so great people and all that. So, but I don't denigrate anyone for their beliefs. This is what they believe, and a lot of them have evolved as well. So there's two words, if I had to define it, that I kind of relate to, and one is, it's called omnism, and that's the belief, like, that all religions are there, but no one religion is all right and has all the truth. There's a lot of religions that have truths. Doesn't mean I have to, follow along and all that. Now, my grandfather Russell was Jewish, so I come from, I have Ashkenazi in my DNA. He was Jewish, and he and his brother came to the United States, and I think it was from Germany. I'm not sure. I don't really know that side of the family, but they changed. They were Rosenthal, and they changed their name to Russell because of religious, persecution. They couldn't get hired being Jewish anyway. But they switched to something called the Baha'i faith, and that I never knew what the Baha'i was, and I had never heard of this. But it's the belief that all religions are kind of united in all in one, and that they were founded based on the manifestations of God. So I find that interesting. So that being said, I incorporate a lot of healing and good energy, and what I believe is I don't believe in hell. There's this really good guy on TikTok that I follow, of all places. His name is Dan McClellan. And if you're going to follow one account on TikTok, it's him. He is a brainiac Bible scholar. Like, he has a master's degree in Bible, studying the Bible and history and all that. And when you hear him talk, a lot of it can go over my head but he breaks down the Bible, what's in the Bible, what the history is, what the language was, the history and all that. So it really helps explain, how it goes from what the truth is and what they believe to how people have twisted that. Some people have twisted that, adopted that to make it, so they have these beliefs that are not very opening and kind, and it's, it's hard for me. Yeah, to fit their agenda, exactly. And it's hard for me, being gay, that, I have people who believe that I'm going to go to hell, and none of that's true. But I do believe that there is a place where people go, and the bad people have to, I mean, everyone has to account for their actions, but us three, yeah, we've made mistakes, but we're good people with good intentions. We don't mean to harm anybody. But those who I'm talking about are the who mean harm, that they have to not only account for their actions when in the afterlife, when they meet their maker, as Mel said, but they have, the universe changes them to recognize their actions and their impact, and it makes them realize the horrors that they have inflicted on people, as recognized from how we might, we look at it from the outsiders, and as survivors, and they have to live with that imprint forever. That my picture is ingrained, or whoever whoever the victim was, that their picture is ingrained into their brain for the rest of their lives. And that, to me, is what they have to face, because they didn't face that in life. Now, for heaven, I call it heaven, but I do believe there is a place where people go. And I do believe that there are people who have had near-death experiences who, visualize a lot of the same. I believe that our wonderful pets go there, and we go there. And for me, I believe I'll get to be whatever age I choose at any time, with no health issues. living my best life the way my dream life, So that's what I believe. It's a tough topic because I have a lot of conflict about formal religions, but I have a belief system. So, what do you think? Do you struggle with that or?
I think that's a really, really interesting way to put it. I think I know for myself, I have always struggled with organized religion. I myself was born and raised Catholic.
Oh,
Not super strict Catholic, but I was absolutely Catholic. I was an altar server. I was confirmed in the church, the whole 9 yards.
hmm,
So for myself, it's interesting, like during my Reiki, I still call upon some archangels during my Reiki energy healings.
ah,
Um, it's funny because Wolf and I always joke around, but I'm always like, Jesus is my homeboy. Do I believe as in like the stories in the Bible? Not necessarily, but I do. If you look at it, a lot of times, like when he puts his hands on people and he heals people, I often wonder if, like, was Jesus the first Reiki healer? I think he was very human. I just think he had special gifts. Did he have quite the following? He could. Look at us when we gather a group together for tarot. A lot of times they end up following along with podcasts, or they follow our social media, or they call us back for repeat business. Isn't
right,
that kind of the same as us creating that group, right? So I do think he very much could have been like somebody that was a leader naturally. I think he could have been a healer. Do I think all of the auspicious stories are true? Not necessarily. That's not to knock anybody else's religion, because I'll be the first one to admit, like, Christmas Mass, who's there? I am. But it's
mm,
because of the camaraderie of it. It's the beautiful energy. It's the
right,
bringing together of everybody over this great feast. Do I believe the background of it? Not necessarily. But again, it's just about like the beauty and the time and the love that's all brought in to the chapel during that time.
right,
Um, but I definitely, like, I kind of believe it's not the same as heaven, but a lot of times pagans say, oh, there's something called the Summerlands, which is like
oh
our
yeah,
version of heaven, if you will.
okay,
And I do think, like what Wolf said, if you have lessons that you need to relearn, if you didn't learn enough
hmm,
during this time, you absolutely gotta come back. You gotta learn those lessons. You gotta come back through the cycle.